What is up, YouTube, and anywhere else that you may be watching this video? Thanks for checking in. We are here today, Hannah and Tim from Bella Vista Studios. We're going to, we have secretly planned some questions for each other that we haven't shown each other, and it's on how to effectively storyboard. So that's what this video is all about. I'm going to ask Hannah questions to begin with. She's just going to give her a response. I'm not saying rapid fire because the amount of times we say it's rapid fire, and yet this is not a rapid fire, but it will be not a, if you clicked on the video, you know the length of the video. So you know if it's rapid fire or not. That's a pro tip for watching our videos in future.
If it's beyond 30 minutes, it's not rapid fire.
All right, so Hannah, are you ready for first questions on how to effectively storyboard? Hannah's our lead instructional design storyboarder in Bella Vista Studios as well. So
pressure's on.
Exactly. That's how I wanted to do that. All right. Okay, we'll start it. Oh, I want to say easy, but it might not be easy. Okay. What kind of formats can you do storyboarding in?
Oh, you can do it in PowerPoint, which I really like. You can do it in Microsoft Word. I think you could do it in Storyline, but it's not something that I do.
Yeah. I've done pen and paper as well before.
Oh, good one.
I know it's not
I have done that before. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes, maybe I should prompt you.
That's how
Here's the answers you need to say. No, it's not like.
I think my first storyboard was pen and paper.
Oh yeah.
It is good to get your ideas out in an easy, clear way. Yeah. It flows a bit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's very different to think from computer screen and just piece of paper and pen. You can get outside the box thinking. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, mate. All right. What elements should you include in a storyboard? You know how we break ours down?
Yeah. So I think, I don't know if I'll get all the parts. I'll do my best. But I think the really important parts is having an intent for the screen. So what is the whole point of having that screen there? And I think that's super important because sometimes we can get carried away and create this really cool activity and all this text and whatever, but if it doesn't meet the goal, then there's no point in creating it. So that's a really important part for me. The type of screen, so whether it's like an interactive activity or whether it's just text and image, and that can be really helpful for the developer to know what type of screen they're developing. The visual aspect of the screen, so we don't go into a lot of detail, but just like you might have a box to represent an image and you might have another box to represent a text box, just to give an idea of how you would like things to be placed on the screen. We have a spot for text on the screen. So whether it's just paragraphs of text or whatever text you're including, we have a part for instructions. So it's really good to have that as a separate component for us because it helps us know, have we told the learner what they need to do to progress? And then the developer can make that information stand out so they know that the learner needs to see that important instruction on the screen. We have an audio script sometimes. So if there's whether there's voiceover or not, different media. So you might put the link to a video that you're going to include on screen, a link to an image or an audio clip. We also have a spot for client comments. So we just make it really clear this is where the client can put their feedback. So they're not wondering what am I supposed to do with this? And then we also have notes to developer and notes to client too. So that's just if there's anything extra that you need to communicate about a screen that's outside of the boxes that we have in our storyboard. I think that'd be the main ones. Yeah. And slide number, that sort of thing. Yeah, nice. But do that at the end, the slide numbers, because that's something I learned. Because if you put the numbers against each slide at the beginning, if you make any changes, you have to adjust it and manually type in. So yeah, it's good to do that at the very end of the storyboarding process. And sometimes we don't even put it in there. No. I think we're starting to realize it's not even really that necessary. So yeah.
Cool. If you want our storyboarding template, just jump onto the Creator Hub and download it. It's free. You'll get what Hannah's talking about. It's in PowerPoint format. Okay, so if someone is an instructional designer, but they're not the developer, what tips on how an instructional designer, how should they communicate to the developer so that it's not lost from the ID's head to the developer's tangible output?
I think just being really specific. So imagining if you were the developer and didn't know anything that was in your head, it's really hard to do that. Sometimes it's easier if you get someone else to have a look at it and just make sure that you've made it really clear. But I think just being like obviously clear. Like even though you think something's obvious, put it down like as clearly as possible so anyone could pick up that storyboard and develop it exactly how you would want it developed. So I think it's just, really specific instructions. And if there's anything that you think could be misinterpreted, just putting it in that notes to the developer part.
Yeah. And even maybe finding examples online around like a visual representation of this is what I'm trying to communicate.
What I mean. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, cool. And I would say talk to them as well, like set it up. Is what I'm thinking as an idea actually like possible? Because sometimes in the technologies it's not. So have that, you kind of co-create it, and it should overlap as opposed to like two separate journeys on the project.
Definitely. Yeah. Agreed.
Cool. What have I got next? What about if you're a solo instructional designer and you have no one to check your work? So how should you check your own work and make sure that you're proofreading it and producing quality work?
I think an important thing is to take a break. So if you've created a storyboard, don't check it as soon as you finish creating it. Create the storyboard first, whether it's like going for a walk or like doing it the next day. This is all the things you taught me. You're like, yes, you finally get it. Just take a break. And I think also looking at it from another perspective. So rather than say you're developing in Storyline.
Yeah.
Or sorry, we're talking about a storyboard, so it'd be in PowerPoint, but maybe just like looking at it in a different way, whether it's, I don't know,
like on your phone or something.
Or, or just, I think the best thing is just taking a break and then looking at it from a fresh perspective and just having like your process set up. You know how we talk about like, I'm going to go through the whole storyboard and just look at grammar, and then I'm going to just look at spelling, and I'm going to just look at interactivity, and just like really putting it into different components rather than trying to do everything at once. I think it's really helpful.
One thing I do is I'll read from the back to the beginning. So if I'm looking for spelling mistakes, I read like word by word, because otherwise if it's in a sentence, I'm like skimming.
You start skimming.
So work backwards is one.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, a bit weird, in terms of visual design, so you said that we have like that part for communicating what might be on the e-learning screen, for example. What level of detail at a storyboard phase would you be putting in that visual element?
I wouldn't include color, so it'd always be black and white. It's really like there's not a lot of detail, to be honest. Like I would just do however I wanted the screen set up. I would use shapes to show the developer what I'm wanting. So it might be like a square for an image, a square for text, and just have like a label on that object stating what it should be.
Like and button or image.
Button, and usually the activity type can help as well. Like if you put drag and drop, you would sort of replicate it on the screen, but the developer would create a drag and drop. So if you're happy with that, then that's enough detail. But I think like what we have is we have our e-learning style guide. So the e-learning style guide gives more detail around like the colors that should be used and when those colors should be used. And how like the look and feel of the e-learning module should be. So for me, I keep it really simple and then get the developer to use that e-learning style guide to create the look and feel the way that it should be.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of our process that we've learned, is to separate visual and content, because when we present them at the same time, clients get so caught up on the visual side of it that they don't focus on the content. So we do it as two separate processes, and we get approval at two different times, so that they're not saying, oh, we don't like the character there, we don't like those colors, or we don't like those buttons. It's like, no, we just want you to focus on the content right now, and we don't try to distract them.
Definitely.
So it's like stick men and things like that, if it is, or like just literally a smiley face if we're indicating like a scenario or something.
Yeah, definitely. It sort of reminds me, just quickly, this is not rapid fire, so if you think of like a plan of a house, you know how it's like black and white and it just shows like the rooms and it's really high level, but it's like the structure. To me, that is a storyboard. It's like the structure, the plan of a house. And then the look and feel is like, what paint are we going to choose and what decorations are we going to have? And it's like adding those sort of elements which come after. You need to get the structure right first, and then you move on to like the making it look pretty and all that sort of stuff.
Because you don't know if it's going to be a bathroom or a living room just yet.
Oh, get you, girl.
So how many rounds of feedback should you be aiming for in reviews of your storyboard?
So we have 3 rounds of feedback, which I think is a good amount. So the first round is like they find everything that they need. So it's like, that's a really intense one. You want your client to like rip it apart and basically just like tell you absolutely everything that they want to change about it and get it to a really good place for the second round. And then the second round's more refined, like now we've got it closer to where you want to be. It should just be like a couple of little things we need to tweak. And then the third round is like, this is you approving it basically. So like you need to make sure that it's what you want, and it might be like very minor changes. So I think 3 works really well.
Yeah.
And it's like a funnel. You start wide and it gets closer and closer to the end product.
Yeah. Nice. And I think how you get there is just communicating what you need people to give you feedback on in each round. And that's how you hone it in, and communicating like, this is your last time to provide feedback because the next time this is what's happening.
Yeah. Love it.
Cool. Any lessons learned from your life as a storyboarder?
I think it's just been to be like very specific around how you want things, because it's very easy to think if you're the one storyboarding, you've got something in your head and it's not always portrayed that way. So I think the way I do it is I just try and make it as simple and clear as possible, like include as much detail as I can.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest lessons.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess what you're saying there is put yourself in the shoes of your end user.
Yeah.
And get out of your head.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Should you always storyboard as an instructional designer?
I have this question for you.
Yes, well, you have to answer.
Maybe we'll skip and I'll just ask you.
Well, we can have different opinions.
Can we?
We are Belvis.
Yeah, we are one. We're all one.
We are. We're just energy glitter. Go on.
The whole video changes topic. I think you should storyboard everything, but like the only thing I'm thinking of is sometimes with like an animation, you don't really need to storyboard. I think if it's something that you can just, as long as you have like the objective and you're really clear on the objectives and an idea of what you're trying to achieve, I think e-learning modules you should storyboard. But if it's something like an animation or a smaller component of the bigger project, then potentially you could get away with it.
All right, we'll see what I say.
You're like, oh, story.
What is your process for getting content for your storyboard?
Human-centered design.
Oh,
and action mapping.
What does that look like practically?
Yeah. So we hold a discovery workshop with our clients. So we get all of the content from them, and then we also hold a discovery workshop that helps us step into the shoes of the end user, come up with actions that help meet the goal. We get the client to come up and the end user to come up with scenarios that's relevant to the end goal that would help us meet it. So storyboarding is really good for us because we like have everything we need to storyboard, and it's so easy for us to storyboard. We never start from scratch. We always have the client content, and we always run workshops with the client to get the exact information that we need.
Yeah. What kind of activities are you running to get that information?
Well, user personas, empathy mapping. I would check out, like my advice would be to check out our human-centered design playlist on YouTube. And we've also got human-centered design learning opportunities, so courses, and there is so much you can do. Like, empathy mapping, personas, user testing, user interviews.
Yeah.
But I think the discovery workshop for me, which incorporates the empathy mapping and user persona and scenarios, is the most important piece of like pre-storyboarding. If we don't do that discovery workshop, we are missing a lot of information, and I think we'd end up making things up or looking on Google and finding information that's not contextual to the company or the end user. So human-centered design and action mapping by Kathy Moore would be my.
Yeah, definitely. So what Hannah's saying is she's going in and being curious and extracting the information relevant to the context of that client, and then basically So you have all this information, you have these scenarios, like how do you organize it so you can put it into your storyboard?
I think it's so coming up with the learning objectives. So what actual objectives align with meeting the project goal, and then looking at each objective and thinking what action or what would it look like in the real world if the learner was to meet that objective. So what we do then is we have those objectives and the actions, and we do information mapping. So all the information that we've collected through human-centered design, action mapping, that workshop I spoke about, we have it all in one place, and then we drag it against which learning objective it aligns with. And then that helps us get like a clearer picture of, okay, all of this information is relevant to that objective. And then what's the actual need to know information that we need to put into the storyboard to help achieve the goal.
Yeah.
So
and
I'd
then
say information mapping.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, definitely. So do the workshops, then you've got information, sorry, you do your learning objectives, because themes start to come out, right? Against that success statement, the themes come out, which are your learning objectives, which you just refine.
Yeah.
Then you're going, what's all this content? Let's map that against which learning objective it's important to.
Yeah.
Then when you've done that, how do you get it into your storyboard?
Well, I think it's looking at all the content, figuring out the need to know, and then once you know what the need to know is for each objective, just thinking about what's the best way that someone would learn this. And I think the best way is to think about the real world. So if you're like, yeah, girl. So if the learner had to do that action in the real world, what would it actually look like if you were a fly on the wall? And then creating some sort of activity or experience that would create the most real and lifelike, realistic situation to put the learner in. So when they face that situation in the real world, they're more likely to be able to do it.
At what point would you, if a client had given you PowerPoint or policies and procedures, at what point in that would you have looked at them, or would you look at them at all?
So I look at it after the discovery workshop, and I have that as part of my information mapping. So like I'll be pulling information from the workshop and looking through the procedure and checking what parts of the procedure match with the learning objectives and help meet the goal. So I'd be pulling information from that.
So what you're probably hearing there is like, it's a long time before Hannah looks at what the client's given us, because we do a lot of other work to extract the information, and then we're just filling the gaps on anything that we might have missed, such as like a specific link or, you know, another policy or something like that. That's cool. Okay, my last question for you is, how do you hold yourself accountable that the content is meeting its intent for each specific thing that you put into the storyboard, and that you're not getting carried away with information overload?
I think it's just before you start storyboarding, knowing what learning objective it's aligning with, and more specifically what action related to that learning objective. So before I start storyboarding, we've got like, I think it says intent or something at the top, intent of the screen. And I make sure I'm really clear on the intent, and then any information that I'm adding and what I'm creating, just continually checking against that intent to make sure that it aligns.
Yeah, nice. And that's almost down to like sentence by sentence.
Is this sentence necessary to meet that intent? And if it's not, don't put it in.
And then I guess that's where, like, when I do a peer review, like I'm going through as a learner and going, does this make sense in my first review? And then the second one is everything. I'm like, does that sentence help us meet that intent? Does it need to be improved to help us meet that intent, or is it meeting it, or is it even necessary?
Nailed it. Are you ready?
I am.
Woo.
Thank you. Round of applause.
Beautiful questions, Kim. Beautiful questions.
Beautiful answers.
Okay, some of my questions are a bit simple at the beginning, but I think it would be nice because people watching or listening to this may not have done a storyboard before. So
we get questions about it all the time.
How could you simply explain to the people listening or watching what is a storyboard?
It's just planning the work, the task that you're about to do. So it's your way of planning. This is how I'm going to present things. This is the flow. This is what it is. It's your planning, whatever format you choose.
And why do you do it?
To organize your brain, to organize everything that you have in existence around the whole project, to help you make sure that you're planning towards meeting your client or your stakeholders' objective, whatever that project goal is. And that's where that information mapping that Hannah was talking about is like, is this relevant? Is it not relevant? So
yeah. Cool. What's the biggest problem as an instructional designer that storyboarding has helped you solve?
Being clear, not having an information overload.
Yeah.
So
nice.
with what you're saying, like that intent, what am I trying to get the learner to do differently as a result of this screen? Okay, well then what do I have to help them do that? What activity will help them change their behavior afterwards? So
yeah,
I feel like that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
I want to change behavior. We need to be clear on the intent of what is that change in behavior?
Yeah.
What do I need to give them to be able to make an action or take an action, make a decision to embed that change in behavior?
Yeah, love it. How detailed do you make your storyboards?
When a storyboard is approved for us, we're taking it and we're making an e-learning course, or we're making something tangible. So the storyboard has to be approved. And that what is important for us is the content. So all of the text, the video scripts, the video choices, websites, TEDx talks, whatever it is, anything that's content related is in the storyboard.
Yeah. How's your storyboard process evolved over the years?
Well, it just kind of summarizes, I guess, what we were speaking about, which is like in the past, I would grab like PowerPoints and policies and start just fucking recreating what the client had. I was uneducated. Then I learned about action mapping.
And you're like, oh my gosh,
human-centered design. Yeah. And I was like, I don't have to have all the answers to storyboard. There has to be some sort of process to be able to solve any problem, which is like any kind of training. Surely there is a repeatable process that can help us do that, to extract information, to then communicate it in a way that changes behavior. And that's where what Hannah was describing earlier with, we do a discovery, we have a project goal, we run things like empathy maps, user interviews, personas, we focus on actions and decisions, then we did the learning objectives reveal themselves, we make sure they're aligned to the success statement, and then we map all of the information from the activities and anything else that's existing into the learning objectives, and then we storyboard.
Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think there are any e-learning projects where a storyboard is not required?
Maybe not our traditional thought of what a storyboard is, but I do believe that storyboarding is just a plan. I'm glad that that's linking all back now. It's just a plan. So whether that is you picking up a piece of paper or like a little post-it note or something like that, you're just planning. You need to get out of your head and organize yourself. So I would say that you should never complete a task without planning. Yeah. Even down to like writing an email and stuff like that. So plan and your storyboard is a format of planning. So therefore I'd say no.
Nice.
Everything needs a plan.
Love it. What tips do you have for creating a storyboard that's user-friendly for your client reviewers?
Well, I guess if I use our storyboard template, that has got each time a client's been like, this doesn't work, or we're confused here, we've gotten better, but it's not perfect and not all clients want that. So we try it in that way, but if it's not working, then we adjust it. I think if you do instructional design effectively, then a storyboard makes sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. If it doesn't, then there's a problem.
Yeah. So take the time to think about, and that's where the proofreading and QAing your work, when you come back, like when I look at Hannah's work or anything else in the team, I'm like, okay, I'm a learner now looking at it. So I look at it on a different device, and that puts me into a receiving frame of mind as opposed to the expert or the instructional designer, and therefore I'm able to go, that was clunky, or that didn't make sense. So we're basically prototyping and what do you call it? User
testing.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it makes me think with Articulate Rise, you know how we noticed with PowerPoint it was really, because Articulate Rise is like different components and you just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Whereas our storyboard's like screen by screen. So we realized for one project it was easier to do a Word document because you just like did a different block for each row rather than, so little situations like that, I guess.
Yeah, just delete what you don't need, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Work it out and improve as long as you reflect, take action on what needs to be improved.
Yeah. Do you ever make decisions during development that don't reflect your storyboard? And if so, how do you manage that?
No, I don't know if we do from memory. It's not coming up as something strong because we take those instructional design roles so seriously, and all those things mean that it's in a really good place. Yeah. And all stakeholders are on the same page. So therefore there isn't any real reason. What is a challenge is if a new stakeholder comes in, which can happen, where they haven't been involved in the storyboarding process, and then they come in at like the development stage and they see it for the first time, and then they're like, oh, what if we put this in, and what if we include this, or what if we change this, and then you're like, back up, buddy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back a few rounds.
But then that's the importance of your success statement. So then you say, well, we've gone through a process and this is why it is this way. So you have that credibility and that accountability to say, this is why we didn't make that decision and go down that path. Yeah. Or if they're still like, oh, but I'd really love to have this. Yeah. And you say, well, help us understand how that's going to help us achieve the success statement. Yeah. And your stakeholders that have been involved on the journey anyway, they'll be on your side because they have been through that, they've got the buy-in in the process, so they know. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
I think another thing I thought of was knowing as the instructional designer what's going to work as well. Like not suggesting an interaction that isn't possible in the tool that you're using. So for example, Articulate Rise, there's a lot of things that you can't do. It's less customizable than Storyline, but I think you sort of learn that over time. And if you don't know, would you just suggest people figure it out before they storyboard?
Yeah, just Google it. I'm thinking of doing this kind of interaction. Does this tool have the capability? Find it out. Yeah.
Cool. What would you say to a client if they were unhappy with the simplicity of a storyboard and wanted you to develop it instead in, for example, Articulate Storyline or Rise? What would you do?
That's interesting. I think that you'd have to understand the true problem. And it's not, there could be so many things there, like what is actually at play there. Why is that important? So that's probably just a conversation about, you know, what's not working, what are your expectations, and I'm digging deeper to understand the true problem of why they're bringing that up as an issue, and then go from there. So you got to put your instructional design hat on to a conversation, I would say. Yeah, because no one should care about the format of a
they might not understand what a storyboard is. They might think that's what it's going to look like. So
that does happen actually. So you just need to be like that when you put your feedback.
That's just a wireframe.
Clear parameters. We just want you to proofread it. We just want you to make sure that it flows and it's meeting the learning objectives. If they're clear on their parameters for feedback, then they don't go, oh, but like I can't click on anything. I can't interact on anything.
And we are very clear on that, so we probably don't get that question a lot.
We're clear on it now because we've made those mistakes in the past.
It's good to in the handover to the client saying this is just content. Don't look at the look and feel. It's going to look very different in the end, but this focus on the content. I like that. What do you wish someone told you before you did your first storyboard? What bit of advice would you have liked?
Maybe to be clear on the intent of what a storyboard was for. What is its purpose? So is it for me? Is it for the learners? Is it for what stakeholders care about it, and why do they care about it? And that would help me present the right information in the right way. Like, is it a personal document and just me planning, or is it going to be communicated, and who else is going to see it, and what do they care about? And what is the next step past my storyboarding? Like what's going to happen after I've done the storyboard? I think that would help kind of mold,
put it all together,
what you produce.
Cool. That's it. Smashed it. Well done.
Thanks. Well done to you. Thank you for watching the video. We would love to know if you have any questions about storyboarding. Put them in the comments, because you know that we'll probably do some posts on that and answer your questions for you, so you get some free coaching. And if this video has added value to you, we would love if you would share it with someone else, because storyboarding is where we get a lot of the questions around, you know, any level of instructional designer. So we'd love you to share it with people, because there's a lot of struggling IDs out there that are just crying out for support and how to do effective storyboard. So yeah, hopefully this has added value, and if it has, that means it's going to add value to someone else as well. So share it with them. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you being part of our community. Thank you to the legend Hannah.
Thank you.
And yeah, have a good day. Bye.
Bye.